Yeah, so let's start this session. Let me welcome Payal Rajpal from Hack
Thank
the
you.
Crisis. Welcome, Payal. Thanks for joining. And we have with us Bill Glew, who is leading the APAC MSc program at Astorn University. Wel- Welcome, Blue. We are Bill. We are highly honored to have you at the World Education Summit. This is the 17th edition of this World Education Summit, and we have held 16 editions in physical locations, and this is the first virtual summit of this World Education Summit series. So it's an honor to have you with us. So may I request Payal to introduce this session and take it over, take this program.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Um, Bill, good to see you again. Same time as last week. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So, while we talk about the pandemic, and we know that these are gravely, profoundly unsettling times for the world. However, the resilience, innovation, and spirit that many universities across the globe have demonstrated in completely rethinking their core duties and in renewing their relationships with communities and wider society has been extraordinary and inspirational. International partnerships between universities are beneficial to all, from the staff and students to the world as a whole. And at a time in which forming those links has perhaps never been simpler, it has also never been more necessary. The rate of internationalization is growing rapidly with unhindered communication channels and inexpensive travel. Universities across the world are already seeking to make the most of the possibilities this presents by forming global partnerships and fostering relationships with other institutions. And you have been a pioneer of one of the largest and most successful gateways project programs for professional engineering in the UK and internationally. So, really eager to hear your opening remarks on this.
Oh, well, thank you very much for inviting me. This is really good opportunity to talk to a part of the world I've never really had a chance to visit, unfortunately. The world is a huge place, and the opportunities presented by the pandemic and our response to it means that actually we can shrink the world even more than it was shrinking already. In the past on my work, I've had to do a lot of traveling. Now, of course, I'm being able to do it using this technology that we're using today. And it's a great opportunity. Every crisis will bring forth opportunities. And this is an opportunity to engage with technologies which have been around, but we've all been a little bit reluctant to adopt. Lots of people have been reluctant to adopt until we have to. So change is inevitable, but success is optional. And I think the people who are prepared to try this change and respond to this change will be the people who will be successful in the future. So I'm really looking forward to our engagement today to see how we can partnership with yourselves and other people to create a new future, a post-COVID future, which will be better than the pre-COVID future.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Dr. Gupta, would really like to hear your, initial remarks on collaboration globally, not just for higher education, but for education as a whole. And, especially for a rapidly expanding economy like ours in India.
Sure. Payal and Bill, thanks for being in the session. It's a great opportunity to share ideas with you. And this pandemic has really shown that how much resilience each of us has, and especially our school education and higher education ecosystem has. So As you mentioned, Payal and Bill, that this crisis has thrown up tremendous opportunities for collaborations. Right now, like I'm sitting in India and talking to Bill, and like in a normal summit, it would have been a huge issue of like traveling, booking the tickets, booking hotel, and all that stuff. So the opportunity is huge, and of course, I think especially in India, as we have seen that tremendous like amounts of collaborations have emerged after this pandemic has struck. Uh, uh, there are collaborations emerging between Indian universities itself due to COVID, and they have started like collaborating more inside India, and also they are collaborating more outside India. And same thing is happening with the school ecosystem, and I think the each of the education stakeholder, including the government organizations, private organizations, schools, colleges, head of departments, teachers, principals, all are actively now seeking collaboration opportunities online, and it is creating win-win situations for all the parties. So I am really looking forward to hear from Bill and Payal on some of the case studies which you have come across about successful collaboration developments. Yes, Payal, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Bill, would you like to sort of present some or discuss some case studies, perhaps from emerging nations or rapidly, emerging nations like ours?
Yes, of course. The important thing to identify is that the skills mix that each country or part of the world needs will depend on the state of their economic development. To try and impose a global skill set on everybody would be irresponsible. We have to recognize that that things are different in different parts of the world, and the requirements of different economies and sectors will change, and societies will change. So although we are living in a emerging global society, I would still say we are pre-global. We have moved away from the industrial era, and although a lot of us think that we are in a global era, I think actually we're still pre-global. We haven't yet been able to establish a consistent skill set for everybody in the world. That will take time. I think it will come, but we've got to be very clear about what our objectives are when we start trying to collaborate across the world, taking advantage of the technologies we've had. We've done some pilot testing working in Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia on programs that we were having to run collaboratively, but still using flying there and back. This was starting back 10 years ago, just to test out whether the type of programs we've been developing here in the UK for UK engineers would translate onto an international stage. And we found they did, but there were changes that we had to introduce. It's not possible just to take a successful program from one part of the world and uplift it and run it in another part of the world and expect it to be successful. We very quickly learned that we had to contextualize that, and that the only way to do that properly was to engage with international partners on a shared basis. We started working on those partnerships, and we identified a number of different strategies for partnerships. And I think this is really one of the most important things I would like to say. I am absolutely committed to developing new partnerships across the world, primarily at university level, because obviously that's the area I'm working in. But I think these approaches will translate all through the higher education, the education spectrum. And we identified a number of different strategies that various universities have adopted for collaboration. There is not one particular strategy that is better than any others. They are like tools in a toolbox, that sometimes you will use a hammer, sometimes you will use a screwdriver, and sometimes you will use a spanner. You can't always use the same tool for the same task. So the 4 types of collaboration that we identified and we're now working on were a precision strategy, where collaboration was identified to suit a particular, an individual need, a precise need. And one of the universities I've worked with based in Hong Kong has done this very successfully. Building on their particular capability and expertise, they sought out opportunities elsewhere in the world to apply that in collaboration with a similarly minded university. So that's the precision model. And it was very focused on a particular need, probably short term. Well, you know, I mean, it's time constrained for maybe 5 or 10 years whilst that need is identified and the solutions put in place for that. There was a distributed type of model where a university who was very keen to expand onto the international stage basically just went out and created a whole range of partnerships, almost irrespective of what the nature of the partnership would achieve. Just basically almost like a shotgun effect. Say, if we try enough partnerships, we know that some of them will succeed. Some might fail, but some will succeed. And that's a route. And again, Malaysia is a part of the world that is trying to build its international presence greatly. And there's a university I was working with there who was taking that approach. Another university I've worked with from the UK looking at their approach was what we would call a micro type collaboration, where it would not be the whole organization, the whole university's partnering. It would be individuals within that university, maybe 1 or 2 research groups who would identify a particular challenge or a particular issue that they were personally motivated with. And this can have huge success, but it doesn't have great impact. But micro collaborations are a way very often for individuals to become familiar with the world of internationalization and collaboration. And then finally, what we've started to try and do at Astorn is customization, where we identify particular partnerships, not in any particular area or discipline, but to suit the particular needs of clients or organizations or student groups in a particular customer, in a particular part of the world. And then we identify not one partner, but a network of partners who together can bring their expertise together to individualize and customize a solution, an educational solution to suit the particular group. And I think although this is only a model, it's only a theory, and I would not suggest it's ideal, I would suggest that starting before any collaboration is set up, if it wants to improve the chances of success, we have to really start thinking about what types of collaboration are we as an organization or a group of people really wanting to create, and try and make sure that we focus on the needs and the demands of that particular type of collaboration, so that we will increase the chances of success. So that's what I'd like. That's my experience so far, and that's where we are moving forward now. All of those approaches have value, but I think we just need to think about it before we start international collaboration for the benefit of our students and workforce, that we think about what it is we're doing in those ways.
Right. Thank you, Bill. And adding on to what Dr. Gupta asked as well, that I've actively worked, in the entire bilateral ties sector for, with governments, with a PPP model, predominantly for the future skills for governments and for students. And like you said, that to have, an ROI, a success towards it while we are in the planning stage is quite sort of important. So the plan to have a center of excellence for cybersecurity sort of begun in 2017 with the Estonian University and between the government of Uttar Pradesh at AKTU. And, it's still in sort of the LOI phases. And with the pandemic hit, blockchain cybersecurity becomes all the more of a dire need for the students to learn, and for the governments to implement, and for the policymakers to sort of work upon. So I truly feel that if we can accelerate this process, and I'm sure Peter here would more than agree with me on that, because he had a few of these collaborative projects which are sort of yet to take off. But hey, welcome, Peter.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
And Peter, as an advocate for education and global collaborations, multilateral ties, we would like to hear your opening remarks.
Yeah. So I think collaboration is very, very important, also in education, but I mean in general. And I think that if look at kind of like coming from also like startup background, so I think that it's very important that you always kind of like share your thoughts and ideas with other people, and they will help you make them better. And I think that that's something that is really fundamental. Also with education, that we can learn so much by kind of like observing what others are doing, and this is something that I always also encourage, like governments, that I'm always surprised how little actually benchmarking and how little collaboration happens kind of like between governments. And again, it's of course important to take into account cultural differences and always, be very, very local. But I think if we look at kind of like from a high enough level and kind of like from far enough away, if you look at education, I think that it's kind of like not that different, and we're all like humans after all. So I think that government should do a lot more benchmarking and basically talk and look at like what works in one country. I mean, it might work in another place as well. So we don't always need to reinvent the wheel in education kind of like either. So collaboration absolutely key, and then learning from others. So that's something that is there's a need for a bit of education, I think, on that level as well, and that collaboration is super important.
Thank you, Peter.
Can I just come back on what you mentioned a minute ago, Payal? Listening to your listening to your description of the cybersecurity center that you were talking about, I would classify that as a hybrid precision customized model. And the value in doing that is that you can set expectations, you can identify the types of resources that you need to deliver them, and timescales. So by setting those expectations for decision makers who might provide the funding or the authorization to do these, you are far more likely to be able to identify what success will look like and then be able to build on that. The worst thing in the world is to set up a collaboration for it to achieve part of what it sets out, but then to have some failure of people to follow it up and deliver because their expectations were set too high. So I think that would enable the sorts of work that we want to do to become well established and long lasting. So that's the way I was just listening to what you were interestingly saying about the Cybersecurity Center.
Yeah, well, thank you, Bill. And, sometimes the dynamics of a larger demographic country like ours, with different governments as a central and states, different decision makers, varied, policies, makes it a bit of a hitchhike. But saying that, really excited to say that Peter and us have been in our early stages working on not just teacher training to be implemented similar to the Finnish education learning model, future schools for co-curriculum perspective, and also cybersecurity being one of the pivotal epicenter topics that we are working on. So yeah, thanks for the great advice there, Bill, and noted that. So moving on, Dr. Gupta, would you like to add a few bits to this?
Sorry. We at Elets have been involved deeply with the government ecosystem. In fact, we have been bringing out a magazine called eGov, which is focusing on IT in the governance. But we get engaged with a lot of central and state departments, smart cities, and we are aware of that there is a huge need which the government is having in terms of hand holding and collaborations in terms of bringing in new ideas and new technology and new processes and systems, and that's what applies to our higher education ecosystem also. uh, uh, so the thanks to the double disruption moment which we are facing. One is the COVID, and another is AI, like things like artificial intelligence hitting us straight on the face. I think the world is changing very dynamically, and it needs as much collaboration as possible. And I think this online medium of collaboration, like here is like can accelerate this whole process of learning and sharing with each other, and also building new processes and new system and designs for collaborations. So, Payal, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Well, the globalized society that we live in, international collaboration programs help by providing students with the ability to study, work, and travel in an international capacity. How researchers and, I would say, on a larger scale, the world benefits, plus with the development of educational hubs, attracting international students from traditional regions of recruitment may become a little more challenging. To continue reinvention, universities should invest in, cross-cultural university partnerships. So, Bill, since you've actively worked on industry reinvention, with the programs in MSc, what, according to you, are the opportunities and strategies for collaborative higher education impact in a rapidly expanding economy like India?
Right. There is no easy answer to this, of course, otherwise everybody would already be doing it. But again, it's to try and focus on a set of objectives which are achievable in a series of steps, so that people can see progress. And then as they see progress, they will start being more and more committed to partnerships. Partnerships used to be challenged by distance. And distance, as we've seen today already, is not got to separate us anymore. It's values and beliefs, if anything, is going to separate us. And it's a clash of values and beliefs in what we're trying to achieve and the way we try and achieve it, which will prevent progress. Actually, what we try and achieve will depend on the context and the type of partnership we're setting out. I think, though, in terms of this presentation, one of the title straps was academic collaboration for future workforce. And that's the really interesting area that I'd like to just briefly mention then in response to your question. How do we develop a future workforce for a global society, this global era that we're coming into? Now, there are, of course, the traditional differentiation between the hard and the soft skills. On a value basis, one of the things that will separate us is what is the purpose of education? What does it tend to lead to? Is it about employability, or is it about being a better person? And one of the challenges we face is that knowledge generation has moved from being a social good to almost being a commodity in our current world. And we have to grasp that nettle and say, is that really what we are trying to achieve? Now, I'm not going to pass a value judgment on whether knowledge generation and expertise is a commodity or a good. I think it can be both from both perspectives. But if we take the perspective of the challenge where we're trying to get a workforce, a global workforce, that's going to solve some of the challenges of the 21st century, the sustainability, equity, and all of these issues, then I do think we have to look at making sure that everybody we educate is going to be able to contribute value. I think both are, obviously more than just being value, but that's the starting point. So we are focusing at employability skills. And then we have to start talking about what type of employability skills. Are we talking about employability skills which enables people who leave education to get a job? And that's one very good perspective on employability skills. How do we help people get into the job that they want as quickly as possible, to attract it, to identify what the skills needed are to get that job? There's the second perspective, which comes from the employers, which is about recruiting people who have come out of an educational environment, who can hit the ground running. One of the biggest challenges we have is that people spend years going through an educational environment, and then when they go into a workplace, they then have to spend a further period of time learning how to apply those skills to hit the ground running, right? So it's not just getting the job because you've got the highest qualification, but it's how do you immediately start creating value, or do the employers have to engage in further training and development in order for the people to be able to add value? And then the final and perhaps most valuable one, which I think the real purpose should be of global collaboration, is how do we ensure that those people who are, once they come into work, they maximize their lifetime value to both themselves, to their employer, and to society. And that's where we start hitting the global issues. Now, we're not going to solve the issues of differences of culture immediately, but one thing I think we can do is forecast the nature of the employability skills, that the soft skills that they will need for that latter category are agility, learning agility, creativity, those sorts of ability to change. And that is, I think, common wherever you are in the world. From my experience, those sorts of things seem to be very common. I'm very drawn by the work of somebody who died recently, unfortunately, Sir Ken Robinson. I don't know whether you've come across any of his work, but Sir Ken was of the opinion that generally our educational systems are designed to stifle creativity. Well, not designed to, but they actually do stifle creativity in people. And so I think one of the best things that collaboration can do is we can get individuals from different contexts and cultures to start talking about how do we try and change our educational system so that we don't stifle creativity in our young people, but actually we develop it and enhance it as quickly as possible. So in terms of what should the collaborations try and achieve, I think they should try and achieve maximum lifetime added value from our people, because of all the renewable resources that have been identified, I think human intellect is the ultimate renewable resource. And if we recognize that and build on that, and our younger people are the future, because, people being born in this decade that we've just started will probably still be working in the last decade of this century. Yeah. And none of us around this table are going to be able to predict what the skills are going to be needed then. But what we can say is that it will be different. So our young people going into education now will have to have the ability to change and adapt as the world changes. That's a rather long-winded, verbose answer to your question, I'm afraid, Payal, but there's no easy answer otherwise.
And did not want an easy answer. This was absolutely hit on the nail. And it's sort of interesting to see that the life skills you touched upon and the life skills everyone's been harping about have sort of come in the forefront right in 2020 when the pandemic has hit. And when we talk about future skills, like, for example, artificial intelligence, it does have a large element of strategy, cognitive thinking, and the other life skills which everyone's been talking about. And I was taking a look at the professional engineering curriculum that you designed, and that has all the elements of life skills as well. So I think it's fantastic that we are project-based learning, assessment, or actually doing it. All the life skills are sort of incorporated, subtly. So yeah, thanks, Bill.
Just come back on that, if I may. That's that's the tactics. What I was talking about a minute ago was the strategy. The tactics are the methodologies that we use, which you've just alluded to, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk a bit more about those in a minute.
Sure. Peter, thank you, Bill. Peter, what shall your thoughts be on opportunities? And I'm, you're a man of blue sky thinking. You want to take people to the moon. The last time I remember meeting Peter, and he's like, I'm working on a program on how I can take people to the moon. And I was like, okay, fantastic. So opportunities, yes, plethora, and strategies for collaborative, impact, especially in a rapidly expanding economy like India, from a jobs or future perspective.
Yeah, so I think that Bill put it very nicely already. So I think that the key thing is that we can predict what skills will be needed. So I think that's or should be very clear to everybody that, I mean, if we think back ourselves, like 10 years, 20 years, or even 30 years, I mean, different skills are definitely needed now than 30 years ago, as an example. And a lot of this is, of course, because the technology, develops faster and faster. Okay, you touched on AI. I think that is, again, one area where it's easy to see that a lot of the jobs we have today will be pretty much like automated away. So machines are very, very good at certain tasks. And then we should make sure that we don't train our young people to compete with machines, meaning that we shouldn't train people for jobs that will not be there. So we should focus on and I totally agree with the human intellect and all that being like a fantastic renewable resource. So again, we need to train people for jobs that we don't know about. So that means that we need to really make sure that we don't kill the creativity. I think this is something that is super important. And I'm also afraid that I have to agree that many of our educational systems and educational institutions are not kind of like doing a very good job in not killing creativity. And I would also like to maybe add there that it's about creativity and initiative. So just like the simple thing that we should encourage people to take the initiative to do things themselves, be proactive. And I think that is a very, very important life skill. And I think it's good that we talk about life skills, and we always keep in mind that, why are we learning things in the first place? So probably it is to, be able to cope with life and do the jobs that are required. Very, very important that we focus on preparing young people for unexpected developments and unexpected kind of like new challenges. And I think that is the most important role of kind of like education and the educational institutions and like the system, if you will. Then part of that, I think that we should blur the kind of like the lines and the borders between, okay, now I'm studying to get a degree and then I will be working and all that. And I think also what Bill said that, okay, first you study and you learn, and then you kind of like start working, and then you have to learn some more. So it makes sense to kind of like blur the borders so that you can study and work, and you should be able to combine that more. And I think that this is a kind of like a lifelong thing that we're never kind of like stopping to learn, and we need to learn new things all the time. So it's again about the creativity and again the initiative also to then kind of like voluntarily learn new things. So we have to have the creativity and the curiosity. I think that's super important, no matter what level of education we're talking about.
Thank you, Peter. And I wouldn't agree more. When we talk about how, on-job training or learning or being in university while you're working is really popular in the UK, Finland, most of the West, it was still quite a rare phenomena when we talk about that in India. When you're in school, obviously till you're 12th grade, you're in school. And then when you're in college, you're supposed to focus on your studies and so on when you're, in your post-graduation or master's as well. Very recently do we have the culture of, work and study together. So I'm sure there is a lot of catch up to play in that regards. But the bizarre thing is that when we have Indian students studying abroad, the entire work study scenario fits in perfectly, and it doesn't when they're studying here. So that's a gap I think industry to academia needs to be filled in quite seriously. But Dr. Gupta, you have been with the education sector, working with governments and private institutions for almost 2 decades. What would your thoughts be on how these gaps can be filled in and bridged by international collaborations?
Sure. I think, as you mentioned, Payal, that in Indian education system, learning on the job or doing apprentice or doing internships has been less appreciated till now. And mostly it has been the academics, learning from books, learning in the classroom has been very high focus area. And that is where I think what I heard from the other 2 speakers, that is the strength of the Western or European universities or international universities. And I think due to the private sector getting into higher education in India, private university, private engineering colleges, and they are like hungry for collaborations. They are looking at new ways of teaching, new ways of giving their students a different exposure, and they are highly aware that job market is changing very, very fast, and unless they are catching up in their education processes, their students will be less employable, and that will reduce their admissions. So they are highly aware, and they are hungry, they are interested, and they are actually exploring all the options of collaborations. And I think any initiative like Payal, you are going to take in this direction will be really welcomed by the Indian higher education ecosystem. And I think I can see the same hunger now even in the school education sector. The private schools are really like speeding up. Of course, the government sector is like slower to execute things because these become a policy issues, and they take their own time of deliberation, consultation, and but I see that there is a huge opportunity for collaborations in India.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gupta. Yes, I mean, opportunities have, been there for a really long time. And I truly hope that now, all of us get to implementing it. There are impeccable opportunities, and I think it's down to now getting to work. Bill, you said that there is something you wanted to add on earlier on. Could I?
If possible, I'd like to come back because I've been talking at quite high levels about the values of collaboration and the need for collaboration and the benefits and the challenges. When you actually try and implement it, some of these ideas that both Peter and I and Dr. Gupta have been talking about, what you need to do is translate these big ideas into real practice, and practice which is going to give value. I really believe, and I could, I don't know the Indian economy too well, but I believe you are sort of transferring from the efficiency stage of industrial development into the innovation stage. So I believe there's a real hunger and a desire and a capability of your workforce to bridge that, and they will learn quite quickly from what we've piloted elsewhere. And those techniques will really be accepted when we can demonstrate, or when your own experiments with this will demonstrate the value of them. And that's where it's going to be the Kickstarter, when we can see the value of being able to do work-based learning, conceive, design, implement, and operate. I don't know if you've come across that sort of technique. Project-based learning, problem-based learning, multidisciplinary team learning. Now, these are all fantastic ideas on paper, but they will only get adopted by people generally when they see the value. And the value comes from the improvement in people's earning capability, the reduction in wastes, the improvement in environment, the better products, the greater marketplace, the ability to sell products globally. And this can all come down at the end, I'm afraid, rather brutally, in terms of money. How can we measure all these competing advantages in terms of money? What's the value added in terms of money? And some of the programs that we've been running, both in the UK and abroad, have demonstrated a huge return on investment, so that the education no longer becomes an investment just to get a job where I'll earn money in future, but it's an investment which can be demonstrated that if I study and develop and improve my creativity and thinking skills that Peter was saying, this will not just, this will actually return a real, very quick, immediate return on the workforce, in terms of we will create a lot less waste. We will have a lot cleaner production process. We will have a product which sells more widely. We will be able to work in an environment which is a lot safer. Economists and business managers are very, very good at being able to translate those values, those benefits, into money terms. So you can very quickly say, what do we have to do to spend? What do we have to invest to get this return? And that's where it's using these project-based learning, problem-based learning, of applying our knowledge, not to a theoretical passing of an exam, but actually to solving a real work problem, a real business problem, that you will see the benefits. And that's how I think we can step up and accelerate the adoption of these sorts of techniques across your economy, is by demonstrating the real value to people. And it's a marketing thing as well. You have to do it, which we can, and then you have to communicate that. It's having a dialogue, which I hope this dialogue we're having today is one of the first steps in that wider dialogue, just by talking about project-based learning, work-based learning, and showing the evidence of what we've done elsewhere. So I hope that in future we can continue this dialogue, and I will have a longer term to explain some of those case studies in more detail. But the highlight is that almost without exception, the return on investment, if I can be so crude as saying it's about money terms, the payback to the individuals and the companies on investing in education is many, many multiple times what they actually spend on it. So if you spend an extra 1 day a week working on developing a work-based learning program, which costs you in time and the company in time, by the end of that program, the company and you probably as an individual have gone 2 promotions, and the company will have saved 10 times what they've spent on it. And I've seen examples of single projects saving many $70 million a year for their employers, just by the engineer thinking about one of the problems they had in a slightly different way. So that's the solution. That's the tactic. Demonstrate real world value.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. Demonstrating, the value, calculating, sort of ROI, which has been proven, and also, when I looked at the professional degree that was offered by, Astorn University that you worked on for many, many years, it was fantastic to see the contents and the curriculum, and immediately identify that I can perhaps think of 100,000 students who could benefit from something as professional as that, as you call it. And similarly, when I keep messaging Peter every now and then, going, hey, listen, we have to do this, and then we have to do this, and he has an answer for everything. He's like, I said, okay, Peter, we have to do something in AI, and he's like, yes, let's do it with this university. We have to do something in cybersecurity, and he's ready with a university in Turku. So it's exciting to be surrounded by people like yourselves who are so passionate about putting that thing out of the door, saying that, hey, look, our country has done it. We as an educator, as a professional, an ace gamer, an industry revolutionist build that you've been doing, we've done this for many, many years, and we have this model which works fantastically, and we prepared to give it to a rapidly expanding nation like India. And I think I'm sure I should be able to find 100,000 people like myself who are as eager and excited to sort of implement that. It's time to do that. So yeah, thank you, Bill. Peter, would you like to add on to what Bill here said?
Yeah, I think that one thing when we talk about things like AI, I think that of course, I mean, we need more people to understand and get trained on AI, and that is kind of like one aspect to the whole thing. But I think also we can use AI and we can use technology to do some pretty cool things nowadays, and I think also in the area of education. If we have kind of like all of education, and then we have all the people, and we have all the jobs, then it's okay. It's not trivial, but basically we can figure out things like that. Okay, if you take these 2 courses available here, you will get a job on Monday, and you will earn this much more every month. So I think that this will be kind of like very, very important, and it will also, I believe, be very effective, because that was also Bill's point about what it boils down to is that you can increase your productivity, you can increase your earning power, and I think that that is a pretty strong kind of like argument for then learning something. And I think that these are the kind of things that we can expect to see, and see that kind of like at you could even do this on kind of like national level, but definitely like in India, you take like one state and you can do kind of like the whole mapping of all the talent, all the skills, all the jobs, and all the available education. And when you have that, then you can also kind of like fill the gaps. So you can fill kind of like the skill gap on an individual basis, but also this is something that you can then use to show that, okay, why should I set up my company in this part of the world? And it's because you will have access to the skills. And then you can also, like in a state or individual nation, you can present that, hey, we need to have this skill gap filled, that, okay, we need 5,000 people over the next few years in the area of, say, automation and robotics, as an example. And then you basically work together with the educational institutions, other people providing education, and you kind of like fill the gap. So I think that these are the kind of things that I'm very excited about when it comes to like AI and how you can apply that kind of like at scale in education. And then I also think that we need to move to a model where we make it very easy for the students to kind of like pick and choose. So you can pick a particular course, but particular training, different university or different institution, or maybe it's a private player that provides your cybersecurity certification or parts of it. And I think that this is again one area where we can do much better than we currently are, and the technology here has and the computing power is now available, so we can do these kind of things at kind of like unprecedented scale, and I think that's exciting, and especially like in the context of India, where of course you have a very big population, at least like looking from a Finnish perspective, where there's only like 5.5 million of us, so we're like tiny. But yeah, I think those kind of things are exciting.
Great, great. Thank you, Peter. And yeah, I truly also believe in 4 E's. So education, empowerment, entrepreneurship, and employability. Like that's the sort of, mantra to go ahead with. So for the closing remarks, actually, I'm going to split it into 2 bases, the questions that we've received from the audience. So the first one, I'm going to club it together. It talks about what is the future of jobs? I know everyone here is, our panelists have touched upon it, but sort of love to hear that. What is the future of jobs, and what are the new skills required in the new normal? So, Bill, Peter, either of you, whoever would like to go first.
I'm sorry to keep hogging the conversation, but I'm so excited to be part of this that I'm going to say something else as well. Yeah, the future of jobs, I don't know. I am not a forecaster. I'm not that far ahead. But those jobs will require learning agility, creativity, innovation, all those skills. And I, as a member of the Education Academy, should not own those. The problem has been the curriculum has been the prisoner of the Education Academy. The slogan I'd like to leave you with you is free the curriculum.
Okay, full stop. Peter.
Yeah, I think that was well said. So I think, and I think that we need to free up like a lot of things, but I really think that it's like if you look at all of education, I mean, okay, now the pandemic has actually been an interesting kind of like experience because we're here now like online, and we could do all of these things before, but now because of the pandemic, this is kind of like become the norm. And I think that also if you look at what happened with all of education when the pandemic hit, it all moved online very, very rapidly. I mean, it's starting with like basic education and like everything. And I think that this is also a great example of what can happen and what is kind of like very, very possible, that we can do all of these things when we have to. And I think that we shouldn't miss, a pandemic and a crisis, as an opportunity, that we can really like rethink a lot of things, and do we need to do all the things that we have been doing so far? Can we change some things? Because again, if I would have told people last year that, hey, like it's going to take a day, and we'll have everybody online, all the schools, all the basic education in Finland, one day and it's like done. And people would have told me that, hey, Peter, you're crazy. It can't be done in a day. Like, what are you thinking? And of course it could be done when we had to. I mean, the infrastructure was there and it's just like, boom, everybody online. And okay, we just kind of like made people remote. So I don't think that we changed too much. I mean, you have a teacher somewhere and then talking to the kids online, and there's not like a lot of like innovation in that. But I mean, it's a start, and it also shows that we can do things differently. And I think that this, reminds me of then, there was this joke that, somebody by mistake gets transferred 100 years into the future, and then he's all lost, and what would be our advice to that guy? And it's like, go to a school, it will be exactly the same. Because I mean, if you look at our schools, they are very, very much the same as 100 years ago. And of course the world has moved on. And I think that this is true for basic education, universities, like the works. And now I would argue that the pandemic has had maybe the biggest impact kind of like in a long time anyway. Maybe not ever, but really long time we haven't seen this kind of like development. So I think that using the pandemic and the crisis as an example of what is possible and how fast things can change, I think that it's impossible to predict, but I totally agree that it's about the kind of like agility, and we really need to be very, very agile. And then in that you have the creativity, you have the the curiosity, the ability to take initiative. And I think that when we have those skills, doesn't matter what will happen. I mean, we need to prepare our young people to then cope with, like a pandemic or two, or, like whatever crisis comes up. We can't predict, the future, but we can help make it better.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that. And weaving your thoughts into the next question as our closing remarks, we have, again, I'm going to club these two. It talks about, is online education here to stay? Very interesting. And second is creativity versus education. So, Bill, would you like to go first?
Absolutely, it's here to stay, but not online education in the traditional sense of just putting all our traditional courses through a computer video link. That will not work. That will not be effective. We have to fundamentally redesign the educational model to suit the capability and opportunities of the internet, and it can be done. So people can learn anywhere, anytime, whatever they need to learn. And we as an academia have to learn to respond to that. So yeah, is it here to stay? Absolutely. The potential for it is enormous in educating the world's population. In terms of creativity versus education, up until now, the two have been conflicting. Our systems have knocked the stuffing out, in the words of Ken, of our creativity. But it can change. There's no reason why it can't. As long as people like ourselves and all our viewers here today put our minds together and work collaboratively. If we try and do it as an individual, we will find it very hard. If we get together, and this event today is part of that, we can collaborate and work out solutions which are global rather than solutions for this part of the world and that part of the world. Then if we do it collaboratively, we can find a way so that education and creativity go hand in glove and work together for the benefit of all.
Thank you, Bill. And I sort of agree to it. Again, looping in our, modern sort of co-curriculum subjects to talk about machine learning, for example. Not only does it have a large element of agility, but also loops in creativity at many, many levels. So yes, Peter, could we hear your remarks on this, please?
Yeah, I think that we'll see, and hopefully we'll see like a lot of change in education. So again, online, of course, is here. It's kind of like part of life, and I think that education is all about like learning these life skills that we talked about. So again, yeah, we'll see hopefully a lot of change in education, and just need to keep this. Again, repeating kind of myself, the creativity, we need to really encourage that. We need to encourage like curiosity, and we need to kind of like, I think that it's also, if you look at kind of like young children, they are the best learners like on the planet. And I think that we should try to maintain that like approach that you are curious by nature and like curious about everything, and I think that this is something that we need to maybe let children be children longer or something like that. So I think that's super important, and it's perfectly okay to be a bit of a child like forever, I think. So that's what I hope to see in education.
Thank you, Peter. And I mean, resonating to what everyone said, in order to weather the current crisis presses educators to act quickly, think innovatively, and work collaboratively to sort of mitigate the impacts of this challenge of, again, meticulously embracing global collaborations. This requires certainly a commitment to change, a shift in the mindset of how we plan and deliver education to use novel solutions for greater impact. And moreover, countries can use this as an opportunity for, an enormous impact via collaborations as one world, one family in this, time of adversity. So thank you very much for your, splendid, remarkable thoughts on today's session. And I'll pass it on to you now, Dr. Gupta. Thank you for having us.
Great pleasure to actually listen to both our speakers. I think learned a lot in this last 1 hour, And in fact, I can only say that we in India, like India is um, uh, ready for a lot of collaborations with the overseas partners, both in the education, also in the startup sector, IT sector, and several other sectors. I think Indian government, Indian education system, and overall in India as a whole is really open because of the lot of thanks to like net, like Indians are exposed to a lot of things which are happening globally. And I will be happy to help in any way possible to make these collaborations happen. So thank you again, both of you, for joining us. Amazing session, learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a sorry for this. Yeah, I think these are the like speaker certificates being shown on the screen. Just to say thanks to our speakers. This is for Peter. This is for Bill. Thank you so much from World Education Summit, and of course thanks to Payal. Sorry, I think it came
No,
as an
no, no. Thank
interruption.
you very much.
Payal,
It
over to
was,
you.
a perfectly remarkable session. Bill, Peter, hope to see you soon again in one of these sessions. And Dr. Gupta, thank you for having all of us. Have a good evening, everyone. Namaste.